Welcome to another deep dive, everybody. Today we're going to be looking at confirmatory business analytics.
Sounds exciting.
Yeah, it is. We've got a presentation on business analytics as our source material, and we're going to try to help everyone listening understand the core concepts, especially like predictive and prescriptive analytics.
Awesome.
Yeah, so are you ready to learn how to leverage data to kind of peek into the future?
Absolutely, this presentation is fascinating.
Okay, great.
Yeah, we're not talking about like vague predictions here. This is about using data to like really understand the likelihood of future events.
Okay, so I'm intrigued. We're going beyond just looking at what happened in the past, right? How exactly does confirmatory analytics do that?
So confirmatory analytics, it helps us judge the likelihood of future events. Think of it like this. You know how you might track your spending each month to create a budget?
Yeah.
That's like exploratory analytics. It's understanding what's already happened.
Okay, I get that. So confirmatory is more like trying to predict what my spending might be next month based on those patterns.
Exactly. You're using the past to make an educated guess about the future, and that's where predictive and prescriptive analytics come in.
Now, those sound interesting. Let's start with predictive analytics. What's the big idea there?
So predictive analytics is all about recognizing patterns in historical data to try to make predictions about what might happen in the future. Think about how streaming services recommend shows based on your viewing history.
Yeah?
That's predictive analytics in action, but these techniques go far beyond entertainment.
Okay, so what kind of serious applications are we talking about here?
Imagine a bank trying to decide whether to approve someone for a loan.
Okay,
Predictive analytics can help them analyze past data to figure out the likelihood of that person repaying the loan.
makes sense.
This can have huge implications for the bank's profitability and even for like expanding access to credit for people who might otherwise be denied.
Wow, that's a really powerful example. It makes me wonder if they use predictive analytics when I got my mortgage.
Right.
But what about businesses trying to figure out, say, how much of a product to make?
That's another area where predictive analytics shines. The presentation gave the example of Google using these techniques to forecast the demand for their Pixel phones.
Okay,
Being able to accurately predict how many phones they'll sell helps them optimize their inventory so they're not stuck with a surplus or facing shortages.
that makes a lot of sense. It's all about minimizing those business risks.
Right.
What other examples did the presentation highlight?
They talked about how Best Buy uses predictive analytics to better understand their customers.
Okay.
By analyzing customer data, they can identify different segments with unique buying habits and target them with specific offers and promotions.
Smart.
Think of it as helping Best Buy personalize the shopping experience and offer you deals that you're actually interested in.
So they're not just sending out generic coupons. They're really trying to predict what each customer wants. That's smart marketing. But how do they actually do this? What are the techniques behind these predictions?
So the presentation highlights three main techniques: classification, regression, and time series analysis. Each offers a different way to analyze data and make predictions about the future.
Okay, let's break those down one by one. Starting with classification. What's that all about?
So classification is all about grouping data into categories based on like specific criteria. Think about sorting your emails into folders.
Right.
Work, personal, promotions.
Yeah.
Each email goes into a specific folder based on its content.
So in a business context, this could be like segmenting customers based on their demographics or purchase history.
Precisely.
Like grouping people who buy a lot of camping gear versus those who are all about the latest tech gadgets.
Exactly. The presentation talked about how companies use classification to personalize their marketing efforts. For example, they might send different promotions to customers who frequently buy electronics compared to those who primarily purchase clothing.
Okay, I'm starting to see how these techniques can be applied in all sorts of ways. What about regression? How does that work?
So regression is all about predicting a specific numeric outcome based on certain factors. Think of it like a mathematical formula where you plug in certain values and get a predicted result.
Okay.
It's like how a lender might look at your credit score, income, and debt-to-income ratio to determine what interest rate to offer you on a loan.
So it's about using known data to build a model that can then predict unknown outcomes. Pretty impressive. What kind of examples did the presentation give for this?
They talked about how a manufacturer could use regression to predict how their costs might change if they increase production.
Okay.
They can analyze past data to see how costs have fluctuated with production levels and use that to forecast what might happen if they decide to ramp things up.
That sounds super helpful for making strategic decisions about production. And pricing, okay, last but not least. What about time series analysis?
So time series analysis focuses on forecasting future values based on historical data that unfolds over time. Think about tracking the stock market. You're looking at past performance to get a sense of where the price might go next, but you're also considering trends and patterns over time.
So it's not just about looking at one data point. It's about understanding the bigger picture and how things have changed over time. Makes sense. Did the presentation give any specific examples of time series analysis in action?
Accountants use this all the time.
Oh, really?
They rely on time series analysis to forecast things like sales earnings and other key performance indicators for a business.
Okay.
By analyzing how these metrics have changed over time, they can develop more accurate budgets and make more informed financial decisions.
So businesses can use all of these predictive techniques, classification, regression, and time series analysis, to get a handle on what the future might hold.
Right.
But what about actually using those predictions to make strategic decisions? Isn't that where prescriptive analytics comes in?
You're exactly right. Prescriptive analytics takes those predictions a step further by figuring out the best course of action based on those predictions and considering all the constraints that real-world businesses face.
Okay, I'm definitely interested in learning more about this. What exactly does prescriptive analytics involve, and how does it actually work in the real world?
Think of prescriptive analytics as your data-driven advisor.
Okay,
It takes the insights from predictive analytics and says, okay, based on what we know, here's what you should do.
I like the sound of that. So it's about moving beyond just knowing what might happen to actually figuring out the best way to respond.
Exactly. But as the presentation emphasized, it's important to remember that businesses don't have unlimited resources. They have budget, staff, and time constraints to consider.
Right.
So how does prescriptive analytics factor in those constraints?
Yeah, how does it?
That's where things get really interesting. Prescriptive analytics helps businesses make the most of what they have.
Okay.
For example, it can help optimize resource allocation, making sure that every dollar and every hour is being used in the most effective way possible.
Wow.
It's like having a super efficient project manager who can analyze all the variables and figure out the optimal plan.
That sounds incredibly helpful, especially for businesses operating in a competitive market. What other kinds of real-world challenges can prescriptive analytics help businesses overcome?
Think about how quickly consumer preferences change.
Yeah,
What's hot today might be old news tomorrow.
right.
Prescriptive analytics helps businesses adapt to these shifting trends. It also helps them navigate things like changing regulations, interest rates, and even economic downturns.
So prescriptive analytics helps businesses deal with both internal constraints and external factors.
Precisely.
Okay,
It's like having a sophisticated navigation system that's constantly updating, helping you avoid traffic jams or roadblocks to make your destination.
I love that analogy.
In this case, your destination is business success.
That's a great analogy. So we've got predictive analytics telling us what might happen, and prescriptive analytics helping us chart the best course through those potential futures. But how do they actually work in practice? What are the specific techniques used in prescriptive analytics?
So the presentation highlights several techniques, and they all play a crucial role in helping businesses make better decisions. Let's start with what-if analysis, which is often used with something called marginal analysis.
Okay, I'm ready to dive in. Tell me more.
What-if analysis is like running simulations to see how changes to certain inputs might impact the final outcomes.
Okay.
Dumb of it is asking, what if we change this? What impact will it have on the results?
So you're essentially testing out different scenarios and seeing how the pieces fall into place.
Exactly. And marginal analysis takes it a step further by focusing on the impact of small changes.
Okay.
It helps businesses determine the benefit or cost of producing or selling just one more unit.
Interesting. It's about finding that sweet spot where the benefits outweigh the costs. Did the presentation give any real-world examples of how businesses use these techniques?
They gave a great example of a manufacturing company deciding whether to expand. Should they add new product lines, or should they focus on increasing the volume of their existing products? What-if analysis and marginal analysis can help them evaluate the potential financial outcomes of each option.
That's a really tough decision for any business to make. It seems like these tools could take a lot of the guesswork out of the equation. Were there any other examples that might resonate with our listeners?
They also talked about how Audi used marginal analysis when making the critical decision of whether to invest more heavily in gasoline engines or electric cars.
Oh, wow.
This was a high-stakes decision with long-term consequences, and marginal analysis helped them weigh the pros and cons of each path forward.
Wow, that's a perfect example of data-driven decision-making having a major impact on the world around us. What other prescriptive analytics techniques did the presentation cover?
Another really important one is cash flow analysis.
Okay.
This technique helps businesses understand the flow of money in and out of their company related to a particular project or investment.
Right.
It's a fundamental tool for evaluating financial viability.
That makes sense. Cash flow is the lifeblood of any business. It seems like this would be particularly useful for startups or companies going through rapid growth. What other techniques are in the prescriptive analytics toolbox?
Scenario analysis is another powerful approach. Instead of trying to pinpoint one specific outcome, it explores a range of possibilities.
Okay.
It helps businesses be prepared for different situations and develop contingency plans in case things don't go as planned.
So scenario analysis is all about being adaptable in a world that's constantly changing.
Exactly. It's especially critical in today's fast-paced, often unpredictable business environment.
I can definitely see the value in that. Were there any other techniques covered in the presentation?
Yes, they discussed goal-seek analysis. This technique is all about figuring out what inputs you need to achieve a specific goal.
Okay.
It's almost like working backwards from a desired outcome.
So if you've got a sales target in mind, goal-seek analysis can help you figure out how much product you need to sell, what price point you need to hit, or what kind of marketing campaign you need to run to reach that target.
It's a super practical tool for setting those ambitious goals and then creating a roadmap for how to get there.
I love the goal-oriented approach. It sounds like it could be applied to personal goals as well, not just business objectives. Was there one more technique mentioned in the presentation?
Yes, the final technique they discussed was sensitivity analysis.
Okay.
It's all about understanding how sensitive your outcomes are to changes in specific inputs.
Okay.
Essentially, it helps you assess risk and make more informed decisions by anticipating how things might change if certain factors fluctuate.
Can you give us an example of how sensitivity analysis might be used in a real-world scenario?
Imagine FedEx trying to figure out how much rising fuel costs might impact their profits.
Okay.
Sensitivity analysis can help them create different fuel price scenarios and see how those changes might affect their bottom line.
Okay, that makes perfect sense. It helps businesses understand the potential downsides and upsides associated with various decisions. So we've covered predictive analytics and prescriptive analytics in some depth. How do these two powerful approaches work together? What's the connection?
That's a great question, and it's an important one to wrap up this part of our deep dive.
Okay.
The answer is they are truly two sides of the same coin. You need both to get the full picture.
Okay.
Prescriptive analytics builds on the insights gained from predictive analytics. You can't recommend the best course of action without first understanding what's likely to happen.
So you first use predictive analytics to anticipate the future, then use prescriptive analytics to figure out the best way to approach those predictions. It's like a 1-2 punch for data-driven decision-making.
Exactly. And when businesses successfully combine these two approaches, they gain a significant competitive advantage. They can make more informed decisions, allocate resources more effectively, and confidently navigate the uncertainty of the business world.
This has been an incredible overview of confirmatory analytics. We've covered a lot of ground from the basic concepts to real-world applications. But before we move on, I'm curious about something the presentation mentioned. Levels of measurement. Can you shed some light on what that means?
Absolutely. Levels of measurement help us understand the nature of the data we are working with.
Okay.
There are four main levels: nominal, ordinal, interval, and ratio.
Okay, break it down for me. What's the difference between these levels?
Nominal data is the simplest. It's all about categories or labels with no order or ranging.
Okay.
Think of things like gender male or female or hair color blonde, brunette, redhead.
Right.
These are just categories, not a scale or a ranking.
So it's just about putting things into different buckets based on shared characteristics. Got it. What about ordinal data? How is that different?
Ordinal data introduces the concept of order or ranking.
Okay.
Think about things like educational level high school diploma, bachelor's degree, master's degree,
Yeah.
or customer satisfaction ratings. Very satisfied, satisfied, neutral, dissatisfied.
So we know that a master's degree represents a higher level of education than a bachelor's degree, but we can't really measure the difference between them in a meaningful way.
Exactly. Now, interval data takes things a step further. It has a clear order, and the differences between the values are measurable.
Okay.
A good example of this is temperature.
Okay.
The difference between 20 degrees and 30 degrees is the same as the difference between 30 degrees and 40 degrees.
So with interval data, we can not only rank values, but also quantify the differences between them. What about that last level ratio data? What makes it different from interval data?
Ratio data has all characteristics of interval data, but it also has a true zero-point making ratios between values meaningful.
Okay.
Think about things like height or weight.
Okay.
Someone who is 6 feet tall is twice as tall as someone who is 3 feet tall.
Right.
That ratio is meaningful because we have a true 0 point, the absence of height.
I see, that makes a lot of sense. Why are these levels of measurement so important? How do they relate to confirmatory analytics?
Understanding the level of measurement of your data is essential because it determines what kinds of statistical analysis you can perform. Certain techniques only work with certain types of data.
So you need to know what kind of data you're working with before you can start making predictions.
Exactly. Using the wrong statistical technique on the wrong type of data could lead to inaccurate results and flawed conclusions.
It sounds like understanding these levels of measurement is crucial for anyone who wants to use confirmatory analytics effectively.
Absolutely.
This deep dive has been incredibly helpful. We've covered so much ground, from the basics of confirmatory analytics to real-world examples of businesses using these techniques. But before we go any further, I'd love to hear your thoughts on the future of this field. Where do you see confirmatory analytics going in the next few years?
That's a great question. And honestly, I think the future of confirmatory analytics is incredibly exciting.
Okay.
As we generate more and more data, the demand for sophisticated tools to extract insights and make better decisions will only continue to grow.
So we can expect to see even more powerful techniques and tools emerging.
Absolutely. And I think we'll see a much greater emphasis on automation and the use of artificial intelligence.
Okay.
AI-powered algorithms can analyze massive amounts of data, find those hidden patterns that humans might miss, and make predictions with incredible accuracy.
That's both exciting and a bit daunting. It makes you wonder what role humans will play in all of this.
That's a valid concern, but I believe that AI will enhance human intelligence, not replace it.
Okay.
The key will be to embrace these technological advancements while also honing our critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
We need to be able to interpret the results generated by these powerful tools and ensure that we're using them responsibly.
It's not about blindly trusting the machines. It's about using them to our advantage while still making thoughtful decisions. I love that perspective. What else do you see on the horizon for confirmatory analytics?
I believe we'll see a surge in demand for professionals who understand both the technical side of data analysis and the business context in which those insights are being used. It's about being able to bridge the gap between data and real-world applications.
You need someone who can speak the language of both data and business to truly unlock the power of these tools. That makes a lot of sense.
And as the field of confirmatory analytics continues to advance, it will be fascinating to see how it transforms industries, helps us solve complex problems, creates new opportunities, and shapes our world in ways we can only imagine.
It sounds like we're on the brink of a data-driven revolution,
I think so.
and it's going to be an incredible journey.
I agree.
Thanks for sharing your insights with us. This deep dive into the world of confirmatory analytics has been truly eye-opening.
My pleasure. It really is an exciting time to be exploring data analytics. But before we get too carried away with the future, let's come back to the present and look at how some businesses are already using confirmatory analytics to transform their operations and achieve some amazing results.
You know, I love hearing about real-world applications. What kind of examples did you come across in your research?
So think about a company like Amazon. They manage millions of products and customers,
Right.
and they use predictive analytics to forecast demand for all those products.
Okay.
This helps them make sure they have enough of the popular items in stock while also avoiding overstocking on products that aren't selling as quickly.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare, but I can absolutely see how predictive analytics could be a game changer in a situation like that.
It's definitely crucial for a business operating at that scale, but it goes beyond just predicting demand.
Okay.
They're also using prescriptive analytics to figure out the most efficient ways to get those products into the hands of their customers. This involves things like choosing the best shipping routes, figuring out the optimal locations for their warehouses, and even predicting the best delivery times.
So they're using data to streamline their entire supply chain from the warehouse to your doorstep. Pretty impressive. What other examples of confirmatory analytics in action did you find?
Another example that stood out to me was in the healthcare industry. Hospitals are using predictive analytics to identify patients who might be at a higher risk of needing to be readmitted after they've been discharged.
That sounds like a really valuable application of this technology. It's not just about improving efficiency, it's about potentially improving health outcomes for patients.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. They're also using prescriptive analytics to address things like optimizing staffing levels, allocating resources more effectively, and even personalizing treatment plans to address individual patient needs.
It seems like the possibilities are almost endless when you start thinking about how these techniques can be applied across different industries. Did you come across any other examples that our listeners might find interesting?
The financial services industry is another great example.
Okay.
Banks use predictive analytics to assess credit risk, which helps them make informed decisions about who to lend money to.
Makes sense.
They're also using these techniques to detect fraudulent transactions, which is crucial for protecting both the banks and their customers from financial losses.
Especially in today's world where cybercrime is becoming more and more sophisticated.
Exactly. Banks are also using prescriptive analytics to make smart decisions about their investment portfolios, personalize the financial advice they provide to clients, and even develop new products and services that meet the evolving needs of their customers.
It sounds like confirmatory analytics is having a significant impact on the way businesses operate across a wide range of industries. But what about the rest of us? Can we apply these powerful tools in our everyday lives?
That's a great question, and the answer is a resounding yes.
Okay.
While we may not have access to the massive data sets that these big companies work with, we can definitely still apply the principles of confirmatory analytics to make better decisions in our own lives.
Okay, I'm all ears. How can we as individuals use these techniques to improve our decision making and get ahead?
Let's start with personal finances.
Okay.
You can use predictive analytics to create a more accurate budget by forecasting your monthly expenses.
Okay.
This can help you get a better handle on your spending and reach your savings goals faster.
Budgeting is something we could all probably be better at. It's not always the most fun or exciting thing, but it's absolutely essential for achieving financial well-being.
I completely agree. And prescriptive analytics can help you take your financial planning to the next level by figuring out the best way to allocate your funds.
Okay.
Should you focus on paying down debt, invest in the stock market, or put more money into your retirement account? Prescriptive analytics can help you analyze the pros and cons of each option and make the most informed decision based on your individual circumstances and financial goals.
I never thought of it that way. You're basically using data to become a smarter, more strategic investor.
Exactly. And it doesn't stop there. You can apply these same principles to all sorts of things in your life. Imagine using predictive analytics to figure out the best time to book your next vacation, or using prescriptive analytics to map out the most efficient route for your next road trip.
Now you're talking. Those are definitely deep dives that I can get on board with.
The bottom line is that the same principles that these large corporations are using to optimize their operations and increase their profits can also be applied to our own personal lives to help us make better choices, save time and money, and more effectively reach our goals.
I love that. It's all about taking that data-driven approach and applying it to our own decision-making processes. What are some other areas where we could use confirmatory analytics in our daily lives?
Think about your career.
Okay.
You could use predictive analytics to identify emerging trends in your industry, pinpoint skills that will be in high demand in the future, and then use that information to strategically plan your career path and ensure that you're investing in the right skills and certifications.
That's a fantastic example. It's all about being proactive and staying ahead of the curve in a rapidly changing job market.
Exactly. You could also use prescriptive analytics to evaluate different job offers, analyze factors like salary, benefits, location, company culture, and career growth potential to determine which offer is the best fit for you and your long-term goals.
It's like using data to create your own personalized career roadmap. I love it. What about something a little more fun and creative? Could we use confirmatory analytics to pursue our hobbies or passions?
Absolutely. Think about a musician who wants to increase their fan base. They could use predictive analytics to analyze social media trends and identify the best platforms for reaching their target audience. Then they could use prescriptive analytics to develop a marketing strategy that optimizes their content and posting schedule to maximize their reach and engagement.
That's a really cool example. So confirmatory analytics can be used to boost your success in the creative world as well.
Absolutely. It's all about using data to understand your audience, identify opportunities, and make smarter decisions that will help you achieve your goals, whether those goals are financial, professional, or personal.
This has been incredibly insightful. I feel like we've just scratched the surface of how individuals can use confirmatory analytics to improve their lives. But before we wrap up this part of our deep dive, I want to circle back to something the presentation touched on briefly. Data visualization. Can you tell us a bit more about why this is such an important aspect of confirmatory analytics?
So data visualization is absolutely essential.
Okay.
It's all about presenting data in a way that's easy to understand and interpret. Instead of just looking at rows and columns of numbers, we can create charts, graphs, dashboards, and other visuals that bring the data to life and help us identify trends, patterns, and insights that might not be obvious just by looking at the raw data.
So it's about transforming that data into something that's more engaging and meaningful.
Exactly. Think about it this way. If you're trying to analyze website traffic, you could look at a spreadsheet with thousands of rows of data showing different pages, visited times of visits, referral sources, and so on.
Right.
Or you could create a visual dashboard that shows you the most popular pages, peak traffic times, and where your visitors are coming from, all in an easy-to-digest format.
I'd much rather look at a visually appealing dashboard than a spreadsheet any day. It seems like data visualization will be especially important when you're trying to communicate your findings to other people.
You hit the nail on the head. Data visualization is a powerful tool for communication. It helps you tell a story with your data, make compelling arguments, and get buy-in from stakeholders who might not be data experts themselves.
It's about translating those complex data insights into a language that everyone can understand. I'm really starting to see how all of these pieces fit together to create a comprehensive approach to data-driven decision-making. But before we move on to our final thoughts, I'd love to hear about some common challenges or pitfalls that people might encounter when trying to implement confirmatory analytics. What are some things to watch out for?
That's a great question. I think one of the biggest challenges is ensuring that you're using high-quality data. If your data is inaccurate, incomplete, or biased, your analysis and predictions won't be reliable.
So garbage in, garbage out.
Exactly. Data quality is foundational. Another common pitfall is focusing too much on the technical aspects of the analysis and losing sight of the bigger business context.
So you can get so caught up in the data that you forget about the real-world implications of your findings.
That's a real risk. It's important to remember that confirmatory analytics is a tool to support decision-making, not replace it. You still need human judgment and expertise to interpret the insights, consider the broader context, and make sound decisions.
It's about using data as a guide, not a dictator.
Exactly. And another challenge is that the world is constantly changing. The patterns and relationships you identify in your data today might not hold true tomorrow.
So you need to be constantly learning, adapting, and refining your approach.
Absolutely. Confirmatory analytics is not a one-time project. It's an ongoing process of learning and discovery.
This has been a fascinating discussion. I've learned so much about the practical applications of confirmatory analytics and the importance of data quality, human judgment, and adaptability. But before we wrap up this deep dive, let's shift gears one last time and delve into a topic that's closely related to predictive analytics: machine learning.
I'm happy to explore that with you. Machine learning is essentially a subset of artificial intelligence that focuses on giving computers the ability to learn from data without being explicitly programmed.
Okay.
It's all about creating algorithms that can identify patterns, make predictions, and improve their performance over time as they're exposed to more data.
So instead of programming a computer with specific rules, we're giving it the tools to learn and make decisions on its own.
Exactly. And this has huge implications for predictive analytics. Machine learning algorithms can sift through massive data sets, identify complex patterns that humans might miss, and make highly accurate predictions about everything from customer behavior to financial markets.
It sounds like a supercharged version of predictive analytics. What are some specific examples of how machine learning is being used for prediction?
Think about those personalized recommendations you get from streaming services or online retailers.
Yeah.
Those are powered by machine learning algorithms that analyze your past behavior and predict what you might want to watch or buy next.
That's something we encounter all the time, and I always wondered how those recommendations were so accurate.
It's amazing, isn't it? Another example is in the field of fraud detection, machine learning algorithms can analyze transaction data in real time and flag any suspicious activity that might indicate fraud, helping the banks and credit card companies protect their customers and perform financial losses.
It seems like these algorithms are becoming increasingly sophisticated. Are there any other applications of machine learning and predictive analytics that our listeners might find interesting?
Absolutely. Machine learning is being used to predict everything from stock prices to weather patterns to disease outbreaks in the healthcare industry. Machine learning algorithms are being used to analyze medical images and predict the likelihood of certain diseases, which can lead to earlier diagnosis and more effective treatment.
It sounds like machine learning is revolutionizing the way we approach prediction in all kinds of fields. What do you see as the future of machine learning in the realm of confirmatory analytics?
I believe machine learning will continue to play an increasingly central role in confirmatory analytics, allowing us to analyze increasingly larger and more complex data sets, make more accurate predictions, and gain deeper insights into the world around us.
It sounds like we're just at the beginning of what machine learning can do. This has been a truly fascinating exploration of confirmatory analytics and its powerful applications. But before we wrap up, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier: ethical considerations. With all of this power at our fingertips, how do we ensure that we're using these tools responsibly and ethically?
That's an incredibly important point to raise, and it's something that everyone working with data needs to be thinking about. As these analytical tools become more sophisticated, we need to be very mindful of potential biases that might be embedded in the data or the algorithms themselves.
So just because an algorithm spits out a prediction doesn't necessarily mean it's fair or objective.
Exactly. We need to be critical thinkers and carefully evaluate the outputs of these models to ensure that we're not perpetuating existing biases or making decisions that could have unintended negative consequences.
It's about using our human judgment and ethical frameworks to guide our decisions, even when we're relying on powerful algorithms.
Absolutely. We need to be constantly asking ourselves, are we using this data responsibly? Are we being transparent about our methods? And are we considering the potential impact of our decisions on all stakeholders?
It's not enough to just be good at analyzing data. We also need to be ethical data stewards.
I couldn't have said it better myself.
This has been a truly thought-provoking discussion. We've covered so much ground today, from the basic principles of confirmatory analytics to real-world applications to ethical considerations. But before we bring this deep dive to a close, I want to make sure our listeners walk away with some clear takeaways and actionable insights. So welcome back to the deep dive. We've been talking all about confirmatory analytics, those data-driven tools that help us predict the future and make smarter decisions.
We have, and we've covered a lot of ground, from the difference between predictive and prescriptive analytics to how these techniques are like changing industries and even our personal life.
Yeah, it has been an incredible journey through data-driven decision-making, and I feel like I've gained a whole new perspective on the power of data. But before we wrap things up, let's summarize some key takeaways for our listeners.
Sure. So I think the biggest takeaway for me, at least, is that confirmatory analytics, it's not just for data scientists.
Yeah, I agree with that.
It's a powerful tool that everyone can use to make more informed decisions in all aspects of their lives.
I couldn't agree more. Whether you're a business leader trying to optimize operations or an individual managing personal finances, these principles can help you reach your goals more effectively.
For sure. Another key point is that predictive and prescriptive analytics are two sides of the same coin. You need both to get the full picture. You can't prescribe a course of action without first understanding what's likely to happen.
Right, so you use predictive analytics to kind of anticipate the future, and then prescriptive analytics to figure out the best way to respond to those predictions. They work together kind of like a roadmap and a navigation system.
Exactly. And when you combine these two approaches, you gain a real advantage in navigating uncertainty and making the most of the opportunities that come your way.
It's like maybe a superpower for decision making. But with great power comes great responsibility, right? We've talked about the ethical considerations of using these tools, and I think that's something we need to keep top of mind.
Absolutely. As we become more reliant on data and algorithms, it's crucial to remember that data is just a tool. It's up to us to interpret the insights, apply our judgment, and make decisions that align with our values and goals.
Right, it's not about blindly following the data. It's about using it as a guide while staying true to our principles. We need to be mindful of potential biases in the data and ensure that we're using these tools in a way that's fair, transparent, and benefits everyone.
I think that's a great point to emphasize. Confirmatory analytics can be incredibly powerful, but it's up to us to use it responsibly and ethically.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, what's the one thing you hope our listeners will take away from this conversation?
I hope they'll walk away feeling empowered to use data to make better decisions in their own lives, whether it's managing their finances, planning their careers, or even choosing their next travel destination. The tools and techniques we've discussed today can help them achieve their goals more effectively.
I love that it's about taking control of your future by harnessing the power of data. And I hope our listeners will also remember that this is just the beginning. The world of confirmatory analytics is constantly evolving, and there are always new things to learn and explore.
Absolutely. So keep exploring, keep learning, and keep diving deep into the world of data.
Thanks for joining us on this journey into confirmatory analytics. We hope you've enjoyed the ride and feel inspired to unlock the power of data in your own life. Until next time, keep those analytical minds engaged, and remember, the future is yours to shape.